My theory, when people say squirrels, things that are distracting us, they say get rid of them. And I totally disagree. These little boogers teach us things. And I don't think you need to get rid of them. I do think you need to cage the little bastards until it's time to use them.
Welcome to Daily Power Boost. Ignite your potential, the podcast where your transformation begins. I'm Sean Michael, and each day I'll bring you quick, impactful insights and action steps to fuel your personal and professional growth. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a leader, or someone ready to break limits and ignite greatness, this is your Daily Power Boost to crush obstacles, stay focused, and awaken the extraordinary potential within you. Because remember, greatness begins within. Let's go. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Daily Power Boost. I'm Sean Michael, the identity disruptor and the inner potential activator, and I'm excited to have a special guest today, Stacy Braiuca. And she is affectionately known as the Squirrel Wrangler. She guides humans to wrangle their own inner squirrels of limiting beliefs, negative emotions, and self-doubt so they can live in peace and joy. Ambitious leaders come to her for guidance in creating connections, congruencies, and change so they can envision their future memories because most of them are disconnected, inauthentic, and terrified of change. She brings 30 years of experience in change, a full atlas of tools, a herd of squirrels to guide you to maximize connections, become congruent,
Thank you so
and
much for having
enjoy
me, Sean
change.
Michael. I've
Welcome,
been
Stacy.
excited about this.
I know we had a little snafu on the original scheduled date, so I'm glad
It
it
happened
all
when it was
worked out.
supposed to.
Yes, all in the alignment of the world and the universe. All right, to start us off, Squirrel Wrangler. You don't hear that every day. How did you first come up with this label, and what does it reveal about your approach to
Well,
mind
it happened
management?
actually while I was in a group of entrepreneurs that we would meet frequently. And my colleague in that group at the time, my hair was bright blue. Now it's got a little blue in it here and there. You can see some. There's gray under it. But so they'd say, oh, the gal with blue hair and squirrels, the gal with blue hair and squirrels. Because I was using my little squirrel puppets to teach people about how to use technology to increase their productivity so they had more time for self-care and human connection. And they kept saying blue hair and squirrels, blue hair and squirrels. And then all of a sudden somebody said, I can't remember that there was the first iteration before Wrangler came about, but it basically was the same thing of, me herding the squirrels. Because my theory, when people say squirrels, things that are distracting us, they say get rid of them. And I totally disagree. These little boogers teach us things. And I don't think you need to get rid of them. I do think you need to cage the little bastards until it's time to use them. And so that was kind of the beginning. It was pre-pandemic. And it was probably about 6 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago. And then once the Squirrel Wrangle, then, we talked about me helping people gather their squirrels and such. And Squirrel Wrangler was born. And it stuck. It has also become an entire world because I merged it with some characters that people may know from a book about somebody named Alice. I merged it into, there's a tree in a place that we cohabit called Go Brunch. There's a tree that has a door in it. And when people go through that door, they spiral down and meet Alice and all sorts of pieces of their unconscious mind. And so the Squirrel Wrangler helps them with those pieces of their unconscious mind to understand themselves better, to understand why maybe their feels come up about things when things happen in the world. You're driving along in traffic and somebody cuts you off, and why does that make you mad? Well, it might not just be because the person cut you off at traffic. There may be something else there. And so that's kind of the short
Right.
version of the story.
The short version. Well, and I totally agree. So many times, like you said, some people say, oh, let's get rid of the squirrels. No, and I was talking with another person recently about the ego. A lot of things are like, you got to kill the ego. It's like, no, you don't need to kill the ego, but you need to use them for good
all things
instead
can
of
be
evil.
used for either good or evil.
Or
all.
Right. Or, I've started on a mission of let's stop pathologizing imposter thoughts. Every time I see somebody say imposter syndrome, I clench. I'm like, it's not a syndrome. It's human doubt, right? It's I call it the imposter monster.
It's fear, and
let's tame him.
It's based on those limiting beliefs.
Right. Well, and I call it identity leakage.
Nice.
Because you're still operating from your old identity, and you're blooming, you're growing into a new identity, but you haven't crossed over yet. So that old identity is leaking out.
It's almost like a sprout from the ground where the seed, which might have been brown and old, dropped into the dirt, and then it's sprouting, but you still see a piece of that browned seed down underneath.
Kind of exactly, yeah. That's a great visual.
It's one of my squirrels. I do that. I pictures of.
And I'm similar. Everybody who knows me well enough knows that I've got an analogy for everything, or an acronym.
Yeah.
Like, I love acronyms and analogies, because, well, and it really fits, because when I learned NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and my coach training,
all about metaphor and analogy are
right?
kings and queens of NLP. I've probably personally gotten away here as we're speaking about NLP, and that being a whatever, an acronyms like that. It's a little scary because there's two kinds of NLP, for that matter. There's programming, and then there's also natural language processing, which is, if for those of you who don't know, from a tech term, that's kind of some of the beginnings and the things that are connected to what we now say AI. But to me, I like both, because I love to program this thing that we're talking through and program this thing. The difference is this thing right here can program itself. This one requires human to program it. They both require human to program, but the human can program the human. And that's, I think, what makes it so.
Right. The computer doesn't quite program itself.
And, our science fiction things say that it could, but it's still going to require a human to teach it how to do that. So in my personal opinion is it will always have human. There's always human piece coming into that. But the fact that this can program itself and always has been able to, time of fire to now.
Right.
I mean, we figured out fire, and then we figured out, oh, what can we do with that? And then we built new things and built new things and built new things and built new things. So in a signature talk I do, one of my cues in that is 1201 August 1st, 1981. I was going to see if you knew what the answer to that one was, of what happened at 12:01 a.m., August 1st, 1981. There's only some of us can age ourselves that way, right? And it's the reason that AI...
Was it the first message on ARPANET?
Okay, so it's the reason why AI is not taking over the world, and it's because MTV knew what it was doing when it played that first video at 12:01 a.m., August 1st, 1981. And the video was, do you remember?
In 1981, I didn't have MTV access because we had a 13-inch black and white TV.
But
no cable.
We're still like generationally that MTV thing before it turned into whatever it is now. the video was Video Killed the Radio Star. And that was because their intention
I
was
remember the
to
song.
disrupt the industry. And they did disrupt the industry with their new tool of playing videos on TV. And it simultaneously, that changed an
Right.
entire generation in how they consumed music. And it terrified a previous generation
Mhm.
on the world. Oh my gosh, these kids are going to grow up and be serial killers or something because they watched MTV. And I think probably statistically the same amount of kids turned into serial killers as always have turned into serial killers. I don't think MTV did anything like that. But I say all of
Right.
that to say, from fire to the printing press to MTV to AI to whatever's next, they're tools that we create. And the tools those tools haven't destroyed the world. Granted, there are some tools that can be used for evil and destroy the world, no doubt. But those tools,
Right.
you can always use a tool for good or bad. And it's human making the decision to use the tool for good or bad.
Exactly.
And the human
Right. It's the
and it's
person
the
wielding
human making
the
the
tool.
decision, good or bad, about themselves, to turn themselves into something good or bad later in life, or to make a decision at some point in your life that you may or may not remember. It may be, and I call it back here, which, who knows, the unconscious mind's not back here, but you make a decision that lives back here and runs a program over and over in your life that sometimes keeps you stuck.
Right. And you make a very valid point, because it is a very unconscious decision, because I have read about story after story and even seen it in my own life, that it wasn't like I decided I'm going to be this way because this happened. One example I heard is very successful businessman. Whenever his business was booming, his relationship at home was in the toilet. And he just couldn't, he's like, when his relationship was doing well, the business was down. So he just kept seesawing back and forth. And he finally worked with someone, and they were able to go back and figure out that when he was a little boy, his uncle came in and was talking to his dad. He wasn't even part of the conversation. He just overheard it. That the uncle was like, you just can't be successful in business and relationships at the same time. And it locked. And the program started running.
Not always
and
things
continued to run and
that
run
we
and run and
make
run.
a decision about ourselves. It's sometimes what we overhear, what we see. And it's, but that also, I don't want people to think, oh, shield your children, keep them hidden, and don't let them ever see anything, because then they see that. That self is also a decision and has ramifications. You can't, we can't just like protect them so much that we think that that's going to save them, because that actually has its own ramifications and own problems that are going to play out later. I think it's more the understanding and knowing that those things happen. And then the really cool part to me, and this is where we were one of the places we connected early on, is the fact that you can go in, find it, tweak it, and reprogram it, and that it won't ever happen. I took my own personal generalized anxiety disorder that I had probably from the time I was a teenager. And 3 years ago, I put it in remission using NLP. Now, mind you, I was a therapist for so many years of that journey as well. From the time I was 25-ish, a little later, I had been a therapist, and I hadn't been able to put my own, I could deal with it. I had ways of coping. I had coping skills.
Right.
But literally,
management tools,
3 years on, I can't remember what it was like to be anxious all the time. And I know I was anxious all the time back then. And I have since, as a therapist and as a practitioner, taken tons of my clients through the same process and watched them bloom that same way. Watched them have something that had them frozen and stuck. and they almost can't, they're not quite to the point where
Right.
they can't
And they,
remember it always, but they're still stunned that doesn't happen anymore. And I think it's just the fact that that is possible lights my brain up, you know?
yeah. Likewise, it was the spark that sent me on the journey. Like, the idea of coaching is something like it's always been part of my life. You know, I was the person, like, I remember I went in the military when I was 19. I was 3 years on the boat. So I was like 21 years old. And I'm at a kiosk in a mall and they're selling cameras or something. And the person behind the counter like lays out their whole life story for me. Like everything. And they're going, I don't know why I told you all that. Like I just
You were a safe person.
comfortable and right. And I was able to hold that and not, handle it badly. Like I was able to just kind of be present and hold the space so that they could release and process. And, I didn't come running in saying,
Right.
oh, I'm Superman. Let me save the day.
Yeah, because
I call it, I actually have an acronym for
no
this.
frappe.
No frappes.
You sure they weren't serving coffee at the kiosk?
No. Well, no, this is something I came up with. I heard part of it. I was in a container where the leader, the facilitator, I don't even want to say the leader, he set the ground rules at the beginning. No fixing, rescuing, advising, and projecting. No frap. And I was like, I like that. Can I make it like a recognizable?
Okay, I do like that one. I do like
acronym.
That one.
So it's no fixing, rescuing, advising, projecting, patronizing, or evaluating. Just like a frappe, which is too sweet. These 6 habits are like the help traps. Let me help you. Let me fix you. Let me rescue you. Let me advise you. Let me project my junk garden.
It's amazing.
So it's a good reminder.
I'm gonna have to send that one. I still do supervision as a therapist with who I call baby social workers. I'm gonna have to send that one out to my baby social workers. And when you were saying it, I was like, and you got to evaluating, and I was like, my brain continued it and added SOO to it, self or others. And it's like no frappes so that you actually can help. Or so that you are actually helpful, because it's not just
exactly.
I think we have to also be careful to take care of ourselves when we are doing the work. So anytime anybody's doing that work, you can easily slide yourself right into home and burn your pants right off with burnout.
Right. Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Burnout. It's interesting that you've worked as a therapist, as a social worker.
That's not an easy feat.
Years, and your original core, I don't know if it still is your core, but your core was burnout to breakthrough.
Breakthroughs. I have worked on with various professionals of burnout to breakthrough and helping that burnout phase.
Yeah, because in the helping profession, whether it's social workers, therapists, counselors, burnout is like, it's like the California wildfires in Los Angeles last year.
If you don't know where you're looking or how to find it, and you can be burned out crispy.
Right, because they've gotten very good at.
You can be burned out crispy and not know it for a long period of time. It's very subtle, and even if you are a therapist and you know those things. And, one of the things I used to teach the babies was you have to plan in your career to change who you're working with, what you're doing with them, what agency or how you're working, etc., at least every 3 to 5 years. Now, that was when I first started working with them 20 some years ago. I've reduced that time now because it's more 1 to 3 years, and I may even say that as somebody who has transitioned from a corporate space to a private practice entrepreneurial, I actually think for some of us, it's vital for us to be able to control the narrative and listen intuitively to our own bodies, our own work habits, our own things in order to be healthy longer. And if I'm practicing in any other way and saying, "Oh, you have to work 9 to 5, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do the other," I'm not I'm not, I just lost my word. I am not promoting the very overall health and wellness to myself or colleagues or coworkers or supervisees that I am to our clients. And I don't think to me, the corporate arena was very unhealthy. And I knew it early, and I knew that if I was going to work for the longevity I knew I needed to work for, I had to get out of that. And that was my own personal choice and decision and way I dealt with it. But I think it's also a symptom of a larger problem socially that the corporate environment is caustic and toxic and a place where, I mean, it's wild.
Right.
Talk about wildfires. They're constant, and it's the humans that are catching on fire.
Right. And I think there's 2 points I pull from this discussion. One is burnout doesn't care who you are.
Doesn't care who you are, how old you are.
You could be, as you said, therapists are getting taken down by the same thing as the CEO in a company, as a salesman,
absolutely,
as the janitor down the street, maybe. It doesn't matter who you are, it can affect you, which then layers into the next level. And this goes back to, the kid thing, right? It's not about shielding our kids and keeping them in a bubble. It's about teaching to pay attention to the machine, the human machine, right? Be aware what's going on. It reminds me of us listening to the inner voice, noticing the red lights that pop in the red lights, the red flags, whatever we want to call them, because and the squirrels are the voice sometimes. Exactly. The emotions, I just did a talk on this, your emotions are an unmet need.
Yeah.
You're not meeting something. So you're feeling sad, you're feeling angry.
I could offer a slight wording change there to say that our negative emotions are an unmet need.
Right.
Like
good
peace and joy are good things. We want more, but we also,
we don't want to,
I mean, I think there, and I do also think that there's also the yin and yang, the idea that in order to understand joy, you need to have felt the opposite of it to an extent. And that's why we're human.
Right. Well, and in so many aspects, right? If all we ever had was good, joyful emotions, life would be kind of boring, I think. You can't have good without bad. You can't have light. If you have light, you have dark. And when I was in my electronics education, they presented the light sucker theory, that lights do not emit light, they suck dark. And when you read it, it looked legitimate. Like you started questioning, you're like, maybe it's right. Like it was, what color is a fluorescent bulb when you throw it out? It's got black at the ends. It ran out of room. It can't hold any more dark. But the point is like, it's got to be a yin. There's got to be a balance. There's one side and the other side. They can't exist without each other. But, the thing is with protecting ourselves or our kids or those in our charge, it's about, I know with my son who's 7, it's about teaching him. Like, I don't just tell him, don't watch that on YouTube. We have a discussion, like, there's a reason I don't want you to watch that. Yes, you know, it can contribute to your bad dreams at night. You know, or, you know, I'm not shielding him. I'm teaching him that there is stuff in the world that you don't want to see.
I think that's important in that it's a teaching.
And you don't.
And many of our cultures, especially, and I'll say this having recently been re-immersed in my own culture, in some of my own culture, is that whole learning by storytelling and learning by, in a non-judgmental storytelling format. I think many indigenous cultures, and not to say the others, and you go back far enough, we're all indigenous to somewhere. So I'm not pinpointing specifically anything, but you go back far enough, all of our cultures had ways of teaching our young by storytelling, and it infused values, and it infused lessons, and it infused, this is why you don't go after the bear, because the damn thing could chase you and kill you. You know, this is why you know, this is why you watch the squirrels, to see what they're doing. Because when they're storing up nuts, oh, that's good, because then they have food for the winter. You know, I think not that we've lost that. I really don't think we have. I think we've mutated.
I don't think we've lost it. We mutated it.
There's noise.
There's a lot of
but
noise.
I think we have the opportunity. What I love is the opportunity we have. We have the opportunity with things like AI to use that for that same thing. Again, we're back to using the tools for good, using the tools for bad. You know, we have the opportunity to use those things to teach not only our kids, but actually we can use it as a brainstorming partner, teach ourselves. You can learn, you know, we've always, again, we have the possibility of teaching ourselves things, teaching ourselves a new language. That's one of the things I re-immersed myself in, was learning my language again. And the really cool thing is at first I was actually a little bit intimidated in a 2-day immersion class. And then within hours, it was rushing back to me that I had previously learned, and the genetic memory. And genetic memory also connects to those things, those unconscious mind lessons that we learn. Because an unconscious mind program that you run may be from your lifetime, but it can also be from a previous lifetime through genetic memory, or previous generation through genetic memory, or a previous lifetime through spiritual memory.
Right. There's so many levels to this. Like, my wife and I haven't read the book cover to cover, but I know the information.
Ooh, the book is, you know, I like good books. I'm gonna have to get that one from you.
And it's all about it's all about, like you said, it's the programs you're running didn't even occur in your lifetime.
And they don't just get passed down behaviorally. It literally can end up encoded in our DNA. The science it out that it literally can be encoded into our DNA, and it comes back out. If you think about just one example, you know, Holocaust survivors who then had children, who had children, who had children. And so you're talking great-grandchildren who have something that is bothering them about something that they lived through. And they may not have ever heard about it, because the great-grandparents or grandparents or whoever the case may be may not have ever talked about it. It may be a hush-hush thing in the family. And so it's not necessarily because they've heard about it. It literally can be, and same thing with American Indian individuals whose families dealt with boarding school trauma, walks. I know people have heard of the Trail of Tears, but there's also a thing called the Trail of Death, which was the Potawatomi that were walked from Indiana to Sugar Creek, Kansas. And I would not be sitting here today without a survivor of that event having survived. And so I know, and I know where that trauma, I knew where the trauma was. That's something I worked on early on. And it was before I even understood what historical trauma was, for that matter, or DNA memory threats. So
Right.
it's fascinating. I think, what's really fascinating to me is the science is bearing out what our ancestors knew intuitively or through story or through things. Science is finally bearing a lot of those things out. Another good book I'll put back your way, which you may know this person, Dr. Bruce Lipton, Biology of Belief, who, fun fact,
Biology of
guess who was
belief.
born on his birthday? Squirrel Wrangler. Isn't that awesome?
The Squirrel Wrangler?
I found that out one day, and it's been within the last couple months, and I was just like, I was giddy. It was like, oh, he's brilliant. And yeah, if you ever get the chance, my best way of consuming his knowledge or telling people is there's a 2+ hour video on YouTube that is him teaching the biology of belief in Germany. Now, the lecture is in English, but that to me is one of the best ways to begin to consume his information. He starts that lecture as a cellular biologist talking about cellular biology. And the end of the lecture, he connects it to spirituality and spiritual belief. It will blow your brain up if you've never considered that option. Open mind.
Yeah, I haven't.
Yeah.
I have. I've watched a lot of his content, and actually, my virtual mentor, the school that I went to for coaching after I took my first NLP coaching course, which was what what you can do that, and to actually have used it, like, simple example, like you talked about, with this persistent anxiety that you lived with for years. This was a simple case. There was a song, I loved the song. My wife, it just it turned her into, it was like getting Bruce Banner angry.
Oh.
Like, she's like, turn it off. And we did just a simple process that took the power away from the song. She doesn't love the song, but it's like,
nice.
You like it? Go ahead. Listen, that's fine.
And so your virtual mentor, you were saying,
mentors, Tony Robbins actually brought in one of his events for his followers, had Bruce Lipton, and they had a conversation. Bruce did his teaching, and he did it. They did a conversation. And another time, they had Richard Bandler,
Kumu, which
teaching.
Kumu in Hawaiian is teacher. My NLP Kumu, Dr. Matthew James, his dad, Dr. Tad, created timeline therapy, which is also mental emotional release. So, where I got my NLP training and my NLP Master Prac training, he actually did a fire walk with Tony Robbins when he was around 11 years old. His dad took him to it, and they also, his dad knew Bandler, Grinder, Dr. Lee, and Dr. Matt knows Dr. Lipton. And so I'm like 2 degrees, Dr. Lipton. We both are.
Yeah. It's so interconnected.
Probably a couple degrees of Squirrel Wrangler at this point.
I love,
like 6 degrees of Squirrel Wrangler.
Yeah, it is. I think, but the other thing is because Robbins was closely connected with, he learned from Bandler and Grinder, and then kind of styled it his own way with his. But the Institute is Chloe Madonna came together with Tony Robbins, and that woman is brilliant. I love her. She's a little tiny Argentinian, and every time I'm playing it, my wife goes, "That's Chloe."
You gotta love that
voice. Like, that's Chloe. But the woman is brilliant.
I think also NLP opens your mind up to brilliance. I would posit that. Knowing NLP and truly understanding it, and truly once you get underneath not just NLP, but the quantum aspects and all of the quantum physics, and you dig, the deeper you dig, the more intense and real it gets, and the more non-real it gets, I'll say.
Well, and I think in the same way, just as we said, things come to us from previous generations through the genes and the spiritual aspect, the quantum aspect. But also, like, one of the core tenets of what we're talking about is modeling excellence. Like, you want to have this, who's somebody who's done it, and then like and when we say modeling, we're not just talking about it. It's kind of like Neo in the Matrix, right? It's not just doing some practice moves or mentoring with them. It's actually like, kind of like, okay, how do they think?
Fun story on that
thoughts?
one.
What are their perspectives?
A couple, at least 3 of the people that Bandler and Grinder observed to create NLP were Virginia Satir, the grandmother of Fitz Pearls, and Milton
Fitz
Erickson.
Pearls.
All 3 were people that I had learned about and learned their information in my first tour through graduate school. And as a clinical social worker, those were core pieces of my learning. Yet NLP, which was already in existence, by the way, was not in our curriculum.
Right.
Now, here's the rest of that story is going further. Francine Shapiro, in great NLP fashion, observed NLP and observed, I think also probably observed timeline therapy and created, which is now in social work curriculum. It's okay for me to
social work
do
and
and
therapy
bill
and counseling,
EMDR, which is very specific. It's somewhat dangerous, and it's much more complicated. It's okay for me to do that in a therapy session and bill for it. But NLP is not well known in the therapy world or used by many therapists. And that fascinates me.
Well, it's not consciously.
Yeah, no,
used.
Knowingly.
Because
absolutely. No, yeah.
I'll give you the example.
It's not knowingly used.
Like,
you're right.
Like, I was reading, I don't remember which book I was reading, but the author, and I see we're running at the top of the hour, but the author was saying he watched a therapist take and give back the same problem to the customer 4 times during the session. So he took his issue away and gave it back to him, and took it away and gave it back to him using NLP.
Type. And that's the as somebody who's seen both sides of that one, what I'll say is there are trainings in the therapeutic worlds that have very similar content, but are still not based fully in that solid NLP world that you can build. Like, once you learn the basics, then you learn the modeling of, and then you can take it forever. And to me, the therapists are taking just something they've seen work or this or that. And granted, they say, oh, there's evidence behind that, but then they say there's not evidence behind NLP, which I disagree with, because I believe there is. That, and then they'll say NLP is not evidence-based, so they don't use it. Well, it's because they haven't looked at it, because there is evidence and it is an incredibly strong modality. So, and once you've seen it, that's one of those things, I think once you've seen it, you can't unsee it.
Right. Definitely. All right. So to wrap this up, because I know Stacy's
speaking of
commitments, but at the beginning, before we went on the record,
I do. And some of the things we've
listeners.
talked about, things like self-care, burnout, understanding kind of some of that about your unconscious mind. I have an online course. It's free. And it's about what I call the big 7 challenges. And it's unlock your potential, which is kind of cool with ignite your potential. Unlock your potential, the big 7 challenges. And it's free and it has 14 modules in it. It's self-paced. You do it as you would like. And then, throughout that, of course, you can reach out to me as well. But I think you're putting the link in the show notes, maybe. It's
I will put the link in the show notes,
stacybbraiuca.com/UYP. So I would love, I'd love for your
Nice. The tagline is easy.
Stacy Squirrel Wrangler is
Braiuca,
so much
maybe not so
easier
easy.
than Stacy Braiuca to spell or see, but hopefully they see my.
But yes, I will definitely include the links in the notes to make it simple because I have those here with me. Thank you so much for your time.
I love the frappes.
Knowledge.
Just gotta say, I love the no frappes. No frappes.
No frappe.
I love.
Not when you're in the space of
so you can drink one,
wanting to help someone.
Yeah, you can drink them all, but no,
yeah, drink them. Enjoy them.
Don't spill your frappe on
out
somebody.
Of the client relationship, the conversation.
Don't spill your frappe on somebody else.
Love
that's just not nice. I love it.
Keep your frappe to yourself.
Thank you so much, Sean Michael. I have, and I adore you.
Thank you. Likewise. Take care, everyone. Thank you for listening. As I said, the links for Stacy's calendar, her free course, her no cost. Because I will say, I don't like the term free because free implies there's no value.
Charge.
This is no cost, no charge. Because I've seen behind the curtain and I know what's there. So it's definitely worth
I appreciate that.
Your commitment.
Yep. No dimes.
Because it won't cost you a dime.
Dimes.
And if you get a chance, Stacy also has a show on YouTube, which I can also link, called Show Me Your Nuts.
Every Tuesday morning, 9 a.m. Central Time. And we uncover and work with the stigmas that things like the word nuts have. And so it's all about mental wellness and lots of different things, lots of different topics around mental wellness.
Very cool. Excellent. Thank you very much again. And thank you all for listening. Take care. Thanks for tuning in to Daily Power Boost. Ignite your potential. Remember, transformation starts with action. So take today's insight, make it your own, and awaken your inner potential. Because remember, greatness begins within. Catch you tomorrow for your next Power Boost.